These 7:30 a.m. meetings. I don't know. That seems to have gone by the wayside. Or maybe I just don't bother anymore. Right? Like coffee before work.
Well, thank you. You see what it looks like when I turn on the batteries. Business idea right there. Right? Wearable technology. Yeah. We wear the same thing. Let's change the design. All right, Stacy. So we're cracking problems this morning, huh?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know if you know that was the title.
I know. I thought about it and I'm like, this is really about product market fit, right? How do you figure out if your startup is a good idea? Right.
Got that under wraps.
Yeah. Good. Why are you here? Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha, and I'll be your host today. Thank you guys so much for attending the 8th Annual Startup Boston Week. And a huge thank you to Suffolk University Sawyer Business School for hosting us, not just this year, but last year as well. As you may have noticed when you came in, this location is the perfect hub for exploring Boston's innovation ecosystem and learning from industry leaders. The goal behind Startup Boston Week is to connect the entire greater Boston and New England startup community, all industries, all startup departments, and all bootstrapped and funding stages for 5 days of learning and connecting with one another. So thank you so much for attending. It's a labor of love. Our team is completely volunteer-led, and we appreciate you playing a role in shaping our startup community. So thank you for attending, and over to you, Stacy.
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. And glad to see you all here at this morning hour. Today we're going to talk about basically product market fit, or how do you know that you have a good startup idea. I'm not sure how to start the PowerPoint. That's not it. How do I start my PowerPoint?
She's working on it.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about that. Just gonna pull that up real quick for you.
No problem.
Should be.
We got to see some of the other great talks that are happening.
To see you.
There we go.
Excellent.
This will be a pretty short talk. I think a lot of you guys know this stuff, so I think it's more just like reintroducing these ideas. And then I'd really like to get into a Q&A and a discussion and, hear what all you guys are going through.
The clicker there if you need as well.
Do I just press the space bar to go, or like this? Okay. So I'm Stacy. Why are you guys listening to me this morning? I'm an investor at Mass Ventures. Mass Ventures is the state's strategic venture capital arm. It is a corporation that sits sort of to the side of state government, but operates on its own. We're not on the state budget, and we've had an evergreen fund for over 45 years. So we invest in early stage deep tech because that's one of the things that's super special about Massachusetts with its 34 research institutions. It also suits our mission very well of early stage, is the hardest time to get funding sometimes. And deep tech can be very hard to get funding because of the runways required. And why I got hired at Mass Ventures is because I have a background in material science. So I worked in semiconductor equipment. I started my career in Silicon Valley doing thin film diamond. I worked in semiconductor equipment. I started a company that was in the FPGA emulation space. I went back to material science. I actually worked at the Air Force Research Lab for a while when my kids were young. And then I went to sort of this startup situation, and I worked in nuclear detectors. And we successfully commercialized those detectors. We spun it out of a national lab and commercialized them. So that's a bit about me. But my day job is meeting startups. And we see about 300 pitches a year and invest in about like 4 or 5 companies. So that's just, I see a lot of pitches. I meet a lot of amazing people. If I had more money, I would write more checks. But we do what we can. And I think all venture firms, we can talk about this more later. All venture firms have these missions and they have their own like rate of spending. And so there's a lot of timing sometimes when you're looking for venture fit and timing, sort of like product market fit. So some of the takeaways from this session are like, first of all, what does it take like for you to be a successful entrepreneur? What are some of the qualities? And then we'll really just spend some time on some best practices for how you validate your startup idea. Like, I have this idea. How do I know it's good? Because really you want to just fail fast, right? If it's not good, find out fast so that you can just move on to your next idea. Being an entrepreneur is really about being that person who can have a vision and take it forward. You don't have to get anchored on any one thing, though it's important to be good at that one thing. And thinking about basic stuff like profit and strategies for pivoting and persevering to that point. If it looks like your customers roll off, or it's just not working out, it's not profitable, how do you pivot? The market changes all the time too. So there's always new emerging technologies that you have to hop onto or be super aware of as a CEO or entrepreneur. My colleague Vineet did this great talk. It was a TEDx at BU. Vineet, some of you may know him. He works at Mass Ventures with us now, and he's just a great member of the startup community here in Boston, and a great friend to me. So he did this great talk. I'm going to go from the bottom up, the top 10 qualities of a successful entrepreneur. Number 10, associate with good brands. So it used to be like just start your company when your first company when you're 16, stuff like that, and keep going. And that's great. But there are some advantages, like if you've worked at Google or you've worked at Amazon, to really be in those organizations first and learn some of these best practices. They are well-run organizations, and you learn a lot of you get a lot of know-how on how to run a tremendous organization and how to work with colleagues. So also a good college, right? If you graduated from a very good college like Suffolk, right? So associate with good brands. You're different. Meet people like you. So number 9, associate with people that are like-minded, like coming to this event. So you're all doing the right thing. I had a lot of friends, and for a lot of different reasons, like I really love the arts. So I had a lot of artistic friends, and they're awesome. And I'm like-minded in that area. But when it came to entrepreneurship and business, I had to have almost like a separate set of friends, right? You need that group of people that gets you. It's really important to have people on your journey with you. Obviously, be inquisitive, be open, be a good listener, right? And find those pain points. This is going to be the subject of the next few slides. Number 7, this is true for all aspects of life, but definitely, of course, in business, deliver on your promises. Be truthful, honest, be that person that people want to work with. Number 6, takes a lot of optimism, right? So relish that. When you're feeling those optimistic feelings, compliment yourself, relish that and spread some of that energy, right? And being flexible, number 5. You just got to, again, keep listening, be ready to pivot. Number 4, use your network. If you can't figure out how to do this, you're unlikely to succeed as an entrepreneur, in my opinion. We really look for this in the founders that we fund. There's just a thing. Like, some people are just really good at meeting people. I was talking to a founder yesterday, and he was so uncomfortable getting out there and hustling. He's like, I've been a scientist my whole career. And I'm like, I hear you, but you just got to force yourself to do it. You know, just find a way, dig deep, use your network. So we'll get into that a little bit. Don't wait for permission, right? Grace Hopper. So it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. I think you just got to decide. When you're a leader, you have to decide. Great entrepreneurs, you're able to look at everything, make a decision, go. Don't marinate in indecisiveness. Be generous. This is true, again, in all aspects of life. You'll get home to your family. You'll be tired. Be generous. Be generous with them, especially. Be generous with your friends. Be generous with your employees. And this might sound kind of counterintuitive, but be generous with your investors. Don't give more than you think you should be giving if you got investors, but don't worry about it too much, right? All your stock. If you hold on to everything, your employees don't get it, they might be unhappy. What's your company then? You know, your investors wind up in putting in less money than you really need. You're slowing down your growth. So it's a mindset of just, it'll work out. There's not like a slice of pie. You're making a pie. It keeps getting bigger. There's a lot of pie. And never give up. So we'll talk a bit about some really personal stuff about perseverance. We'll get into that. This was not on Vinit's list. There's been a lot of research around this. There's a thing called Dunning-Kruger where you're like, I think I can do that, because you're actually not in the field. And so you're not familiar with all of the difficulties in the field. Okay. So if you want to start a software company and you know nothing about software, you're in trouble. You are in trouble right there. So go into a field, a business. You're like, I've been doing real estate forever. I want to do this prop tech company, right? So I've been in finance forever. I'm doing a fintech company. When I did the FPGA company, it was design stuff. I was not the technical founder, right? So we had that competence. At least, you know, the founding partners had a balanced set of competence. But I understood a lot about chips and using chips. So I had that side of it. So now we're going to talk about, really, this is about product market fit. I think this is how do you assess, how do you save time and not chase mirages? Well, let's talk about what it feels like first when you product market fit. It means you're building something people want. You're not fooling yourself. You're not like telling the market. You can't tell the market what the market wants. That's just not how markets work. And it just starts to feel like a pull, like you're getting this after go, and building, sweating, 3 a.m, you know, it starts to feel like you're getting pulled forward after climbing for so long. And it probably means you don't need to keep pivoting. If you've had 5 pivots, now it's like, okay, this is the one. And it means you're not wasting your time and your money and your employees' time and other people's money on a bad idea. It's extremely important. And it means that, and I know entrepreneurs who have done this. They went for 4 or 5 years funded, and then they just said, it's not going to work. And they pulled the plug. It's a really brave decision, right? You have to kill bad ideas. And this is, we're here today, and you're here today because you understand how important this is. I can't think of a bigger issue that would cause a company to fail. It is funny. There's a funny list. I should have included it. Like there's 5 ways to succeed: market timing, like a great product, all that stuff. And there's like 85 ways for companies to fail. Founder stuff, bad timing, So there are other ways to fail, but this is product market fit captures a lot of this stuff. And you really should figure out the product market fit before you make the product, if possible. So how do you do that? The thinking now with all this stuff around like lean launch is like Paul Graham, things like that, people that he founded Y Combinator, like is be a scientist, right? Just research it. And the trick is they say 100 phone calls, right? But you have to have appropriate questions for those phone calls. Because the people you're calling are already so polite, they're picking up the phone, right? And so the rub you get into, the difficulty you get into is people's actual just human politeness. We're going to talk about that more. Another great signal that you have product market fit is actually a joint development agreement, or what's called a CRADA, like a cooperative research agreement. But these sort of early orders, a no-cost engineering order, so sort of like a JDA, where they say, design this specially for me. And of course, another way you can find it is doing these alpha releases, particularly in software. You can release stuff and just market it a bit and see who's using it and what parts of it. You can be very clever about that, exactly what parts are being used. Alpha releases can be a little harder if you're doing something like a solar cell, right? A novel solar cell. It's a little trickier. So get back to the joint development agreements. And it's nearly the opposite of a pitch. How do you ask these questions to figure out this product market fit? And there's a great book that I read called The Mom Test, and it's short and the author's hilarious, and it's got this pink cover. So I think you could find it on Amazon, and $12, you got some knowledge. You really got to find the pain and how they handle it and whether they even care. That's the tricky part. And it's market inertia that is sometimes a super killer. So he called it the mom test because he's like, it's like how your mom will always pat you on the head and be like, that sounds like a great idea, honey, right? You don't want to ask those questions. So he gives some examples like, what if I could save you 2 hours of work? Or, don't you hate it when it doesn't complete on time? Or, sometimes people get really interested in pricing questions, which is fair, but would you pay, $10 for a product that makes you $200, right? And everyone's like, well, yeah, I would pay $10 for that if it makes me $200. But they're fake. They're sort of fake questions that you're designing in your own head to get a positive answer. And they're going to be polite with you. Again, they're busy people who already picked up the phone. So he offers these other ways. It's sort of like, just don't talk about your idea at all. Just be like, is this a challenge for you? How do you try to fix it? What are the implications of that? Because sometimes they're just happy with their workflow, even though it stinks. Or they're unhappy with it, but they're not going to change, right? So and again, back to this 100 phone calls, I just read, it's actually this guy, Steli FT, who kind of got that. But I recommend, there's a lot of online stuff. Actually, we have a lot of learnings. We have a lot of videos with experts that you can look at. We have a bunch of stuff like what's venture debt and How do you hire your first salespersons? We have a lot of this stuff too. Steve Blank has a lot of stuff online, and Paul Graham probably has a blog. So there's a lot of stuff out there about this lean launch methodologies. But how do you find 100 people? It gets this quality 4, right? Use your network. High school friends, it doesn't matter. Go, go, go. Like, people want to be helpful. And people like my age at this point in my career, it's actually my job to be, I just feel like I should be mentoring all the time. I love working with younger people and mentoring all kinds of people. So people love to be helpful. I find your alma mater is a great resource. It doesn't matter if you're here and they're in California. They're going to have events, alumni stuff, alumni network, angel groups, angel funding groups, famous venture capitalists, famous people in your industry, people who've been there, done that, or maybe retired. So I find that's a very powerful connection. Obviously, trade shows, go where they are. Leave the building. Do not sit at home. And don't worry about where their status is in the organization. Say if you're at a trade show, again, because you're really just like, see, sometimes it's like the people, the day-to-day people in an organization, right? Like not C-suite, they know so much of it. We've all been there, right? They know so much more in a way about how the company operates and where the pain points are. And just stay casual, right? Like just sidebars. And actually, just 2 days ago, Steve Blank had a blog post. It was like on LinkedIn, a little brief article, and he gets requests all the time. He's at Stanford. He's pretty famous. He more or less invented I-Core for the National Science Foundation. If you don't know what I-Core is, worth looking up. And he said, how do you ask for help? And he's like, offer something in return. And I was like, that's a good idea. So he said, I want to ask you a few questions about Steve. Steve, can I talk to you for 15 minutes? By the way, I always say 15 minutes. Never say an hour. 15 minutes is code for, I'm going to keep it brief. Maybe we'll talk for a half an hour if you really are digging it, right? Steve, help me out with this. Steve. I mean, he's pretty famous in the field. And he's like, reciprocate a bit. So you say, Steve, can I talk to you about this? In exchange, I'll share with you what I've learned about the aqua farming seaweed market, just something that, a nugget you're interested in. You're all interesting people. You got stuff going on, right? So people, information is currency, right? And I bet every one of you knows something really interesting in your domain. So I thought that was a good tip. This guy, Peter Reinhardt on the right, he gave this hilarious, it's on Y Combinator somewhere, talk about product market fit and what they went through. But he had some great advice. So I'm just picking up on his advice. It was on Stanford Online, I guess. You have to come in as an entrepreneur with all this optimism and these big ideas about the future, right? But it also can be a mirage. Like, one of the things I'm always skeptical about is markets that have not arrived yet, right? So let me think of one. Say you want to be a supplier to Commonwealth Fusion, and there's going to be a huge build out of fusion companies. And I'm like, well, that's 10 years away, right? So it's not arrived. It hasn't arrived yet. Be careful. Be really careful about compliments. You're all amazing people. People will compliment you. Bin it, right? Compartmentalize that. Edge cases. This is really hard. I've worked with a lot of military technology. Military is awesome. They're great design partners. They will love you and buy 12 of them. Edge case. Is this really something that you can sell at scale in a broader market? Trickle-in sales is another version of that. There's just like a very narrow group of people that's very interested in that, you know. My thing, I added this, is commodity markets. I really struggle with these. It shows up a lot in deep tech. Energy is a commodity. Plastic, like recycling, like those are all commodity items. Recycling's been around for a long time, right? So where's your edge? Let me think of some others. Energy is a big one. It's really hard. Yeah. So like, you're like, I have a new way of making jet fuel with natural stuff. Okay. People can make jet fuel with just regular, huge, global, huge, massive petroleum industry where all the equipment is capitalized, right? Back to like even electricity, watch out for this. When the industry is already capitalized, the grid in the Northeast, including New York, the electrical grid is the biggest piece of machinery on earth. That's a lot of capital. Good luck competing with that, right? If you're like, put this on the grid, they've already paid for everything. And there's and understand those regulations. Sorry, I don't want to get stuck on electricity, but I was in an old market with nuclear detection, actually. And so I lived this journey. It's a 100-year-old industry, and it was really hard to get people to change. So hard. They're like, well, but we can keep using the old detector that isn't as good, but works well enough. So we were just banging our heads against that. And emerging markets, ones that have not arrived yet. Has it really arrived, or are people just saying it's coming? Okay, so with the remedies, we're back to 100 phone calls. Sorry, I've repeated this a bunch of slides. Don't talk about your product. Listen. When I talk to an entrepreneur and they spend the first 20 minutes, they've got time with me, and it's my job to mentor people and give advice, right? Because I'm at Mass Ventures, and we're we also do a lot of pitch coaching. We administer some grants on behalf of the state of Massachusetts. And they talk 20 minutes about themselves. I'm kind of like, I'm right here. Like, do you want, like, it's like, listen, seek expertise, obviously, be honest with yourself, and back to killing bad ideas. There'll be more ideas. And that's part of the optimism, right? There will be more ideas. Other fun things you'll find out when you do those 100 phone calls and you really get out there. I struggle with this sometimes. I'm like, do I even like these people? Like, I'm just in this market in a field that's just like sometimes too difficult and too quirky and too much work. Is there a huge delay between when they talk about it and start looking at it and when you'd actually sell it, right? So aerospace is sort of notorious for that. Cars, anything in automotive, they want to pay you 1 penny for what you developed, and it's going to take 10 years to qualify it, right? So, regulations, oh my God. I know a company that their customer didn't pull the right paperwork. Everything's shut down for 6 months. Again, people, all the obvious things here that like find out, hey, are you locked in? Are you in a 3-year contract with your current supplier for the SaaS software that I'm competing with? Calcified, I talked about that, 100-year-old industries, right? Really tough. And is the market smaller than we thought or more fragmented? Fragmented is tough too. How do you pull people together? It's really hard. Make the most of those 100 phone calls, right? Try however you like to do it. I brought up a little bit here. If you're not familiar with the business model canvas, it's a pretty cool way to just be disciplined about the parts of what a company is. A company is the product. It's also the making of the product. It's also the people who are running your company. It's also your suppliers. Right. And it's also your sales mechanism, not just your people. You have a recipe, right? So you're not just building a product. You, as leaders, are building a company. So the key things you're going to be finding out are sort of customer segments. People like to really drill into who their ideal customer is, what that profile is. You know, she's a mother of 3 that works part-time, right? And again, really nailing your value prop. Get close to their revenue. If you can make them money, you'll make money. Make them money. When you save them money, it's much harder. Make them money. If they use their stuff, they can charge more. That's what you're looking to do. Don't forget to be profitable. This is a super doctor obvious, but just be careful, right? If you're a hardware company, yes, you got to think about your plan to getting those costs down. Software can be more expensive than you think in terms of marketing and support, picking up the phone and having a staff to do that. Service companies like your classic law firm are often profitable right out of the gate, but they're not that scalable because everything goes through you. And sometimes in venture land, we call that a lifestyle company, or we just say, well, it's service. It's not scalable. And that's fine. I think that's a great company, right? Like I know people who work at law firms, they're really happy. They're doing awesome things and they may have a great salary and they put their kids in private school, and that's awesome. Like accounting, you do you, it's just be aware of what your business model is. And sometimes when it's very innovative, there's a company I know that separates very small molecules in vapor form, right? So like hydrogen from methane. It's just very different. It's a very different approach. So it's just going to take a while. I don't know. Like it's inexpensive to make, but they just don't know yet what they can charge and what the market will bear. It'll just take a while. But they have a lot of interest, a lot of inbound, right? So we're pretty sure about the product market fit. Okay. So you do all this stuff and you think, oh gosh, the market is shifting underneath my feet. That's what happened to us with the FPGA stuff. And we wanted to pivot to the cloud. I wanted to pivot to the cloud. The cloud was just emerging. And there was a disagreement about that. I don't know if that would have, improved the outcome. Be flexible, and these 2 qualities are important: flexibility and not waiting for permission. Vineet actually had a good story about he was brought in as a CEO in a Series B company, and after a bit he just realized the market was shifting, and he just made the hard decision, and they just pivoted, and it worked out really well. It was like in communications or something, and underlying technology is often shifting. Even if you see a startup, a startup, and it looks like they're, just taking off underneath, even for them, it's not, it's not growing that linearly. And I put this in here. There's a feeling called shame that I think adults can be a little bit prone to. And it's kind of one of the worst and most harmful feelings. It's useful. It's useful if you really hurt somebody, like you slap somebody or, were cruel to a child. I get it. There's a time and a place for shame. Not really in business. If you started something in good faith and you tried it and you're like, it's okay. It happens to all entrepreneurs all the time. And so I think some of the best entrepreneurs just don't waste time with feelings of, oh my gosh, I told the customer something and it's different, or I told my investor something is different. Just go. It's fine. We know that. So science, just find the better timing. I've seen a lot of people just go to a simpler product. You're like, I'm going to make this, but science is like, all the market wants is this. Just explore and just communicate well, right? Have that optimism and just, it's fine. And it's what successful people do. I'm going to wrap up here because I do want to leave time for Q&A. So perseverance, you need the qualities 1, 2, 6, and 8. Never give up, be generous, be optimistic, be inquisitive. But I'm going to dig a little deeper here because it's hard at 2 in the morning when you wake up and your mind's racing. So remind yourself of what really brings you meaning in life and tell your story to yourself. If your goal is an education product and you really want to help kids with dyslexia and it's not working out right away, that's okay. Like, remind yourself that this is my mission, right? This is what gives my life meaning. And your family and friends, right? Reach out. So part of having perseverance is actually understanding that you're having a hard time and you need to talk to your friends. Those people get you through, right? A brother, a sister, an old high school friend. They'll show up for you. Reach out. Find what keeps you balanced. A lot of people think, well, if I just run for 4 miles every day, that's awesome. But there's more to staying balanced, right? So just look at how you live your life, your good days when you're feeling energetic. Like, just remember just your personal health, obviously. And keep your promises, right? Keep your promises. Always respect yourself. That's it. That's it for now. Our accelerator is, we have a bunch of tabs on our website. It's called accelerator@massventures.com. And like I said, we have like 45 videos. They're with experts. We always joke, like, we just didn't know what we didn't know when we were starting companies. We just didn't know. So we interview these great experts. That's my name and my email. And that's it for now. Questions? I don't know how to escape that. But yes.
So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, when coming up with thanks. When coming up with ideas, what's your take on if there's an existing market, but existing players already? But it's a huge market. So, for example, Uber and Lyft are already there, but there's a huge population of people. Because when I go to certain cities, I see other smaller companies that have popped up doing the same services. What's your take on investing in, those kind of companies, those kind of ideas where there is a market fit, you see that there is success in that space, but there's more volume that can be serviced?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm just gonna, for what it's worth, that's not my expertise because I haven't done a consumer focused company. So take this with a grain of salt. As an investor, it would be a no for me because you get trampled by these well-funded companies all the time. The flip side is, if you can bootstrap it and you're reaching a part of the market that say Lyft or Uber has struggled to reach, then you could probably get angel investing. And if you got good friends and who have somehow a little bit of money, and you could probably sell it to them. But unfortunately in venture, it's a lot of unicorn hunting. So I just see it as it's a very interesting market, but it's really hard to compete with that level of funding that those companies have. Yeah, and how you differentiate yourself. That's actually a really good question. Yes.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm a data strategy consultant for female founders. How do you see data playing into determining product market fit? Do you use data to figure out, like, have we reached enough people, or is there enough traction in our product? And I'd love your perspective both as an investor and as an advisor.
So I'm more used to enterprise sales. The short answer is yes, but the key thing I'm looking for is revenue. It's just really that simple. That's my favorite data point. And we're all like, yes, Dr. Obvious over here. Show me some revenue. When there are, I do work with one software company, and they're much more able to grab a lot of data. But yeah, I think it can be really useful for finding that product market fit for sure. And you can do like alpha releases and see A and B testing is a classic way to do it, particularly in software. You can offer both at once and see which UI people like better. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
I'll just throw one on the table for something to talk about here. We spent a lot of time.
Cutting my steps in.
You've spent a lot of time for a good reason talking about market fit, how to size up a market, what's good, what's bad, that kind of thing. At least that's what I got out of this. So let me throw you, kind of a softball, if you will. What do you think about the fintech market today? And do you invest in fintech?
We do not do fintech.
Why?
They did it in the past and didn't work out. I'm a fan. I think it's very exciting. They're some of the quickest right now. Finance is the quickest adopter of a lot of really cool AI stuff. Because there's just some analysis that can be automated better. Prop tech and fintech are amazing markets. Unfortunately for me, it's just not my field. And
Why did it fail?
it was before I joined. I'm not quite sure. I wouldn't say they failed. Let me put it this way. It's really competitive. And we have our own particular thesis and mission. And the other reason we don't do fintech, prop tech, is that software firms, for the most part, are very national, if not international. And actually, we have a mandate for, believe it or not, just job growth in Massachusetts. So we have a bias towards industry and building factories. So I wish I could answer your question better, but it's so competitive. Fintech's brutal.
Other than just
Yeah.
jobs, you have a bias towards brick and mortar. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Because of jobs, they're more likely to stay here. Yeah.
Is that Mass Ventures in general?
That's just Mass
focuses
Ventures.
on just
Yeah.
local Massachusetts. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, because we're the state strategic. So again, we don't operate on the budget. We're off budget. We have our own fund that was seeded by the state of Massachusetts back in 1978. Actually, I think it started with an EDA grant, an Economic Development Association grant, a federal grant of like $3 million. We got like 80 under management right now. Yeah, so I wish I could answer. But I do perceive it as a very, very. I work with an AI company, and it's. We have some design partners who are in finance, and I just think they're looking at lots of tools. So how do you distinguish yourself? But I think it comes back to that thing of competence and connections. I just saw a talk actually. What's the guy's name? He's a Kellogg. It was Thursday night, and he's done some amazing work on data. Like he's looked through a lot of the data, working with the IRS data and Small Business Association data. And interestingly, the most successful founders are probably like 45 to 60 years old. Like the most successful outcomes. And I think a lot of it is that, a lot of early sales is you walk in and you're like, hey, Alicia, how's it going? I started a company and we have this new product, right? So it's a friend. You're often selling to friends. So it's a different network for sure. And some amount of wisdom. There's just so much know-how you need to have to run a successful company. The people skills, understanding all of the basics legally, all the basics accounting wise. Like, it's just a lot of wisdom.
I think if I can, it's experience.
Yeah.
I mean, been there, done that. I hear a lot of people say, how do I know the questions to ask? Get some experience.
You just learn it. But
Yeah.
there's only one way to learn, right? Keep getting out there. Again, you're all doing the right thing, even by just coming today, right?
I have a question from the virtual audience.
Oh, okay, great.
They're asking about the plastic industry. They say it's very well established. So, do you consider working on biodegradable plastic as chasing the mirage?
Yeah, that's a super great question. So I've talked a little bit about Mass Ventures. I'll talk from the venture perspective. Our mission, I've shared a bit about that. There are a lot of venture firms right now who have a mandate around clean tech, including anti-pollution, which is how I would bin recyclable plastic. We actually had a company we probably would have invested in as recyclable plastic, but they had a founder issue and the company was dissolved and is now hopefully being reformed. So the short answer is yes. I think, yeah, there's PLA, obviously, that's been around for a long time. So that's the abiding challenge, right? Is recycled plastics have been out there for a long time. So, but people don't use them because the properties of the plastic aren't great, right? It's like, I don't know, like nylon or something. It's fine. But, so how do you, you got to really drill into, and I'm sure they have drilled into the pain point there that they're particularly solving. This founder that we were working with, she was addressing stuff around farming. It was very particular and there was a lot of sales already, a lot of interest. So I hope that gets revived. I also personally invested in a plastics company that is not recyclable. And that's sort of weird, right? Because I was just saying, like, these calcified commodity, that talk about a commodity, right? But it's not a commodity plastic. It's a super polymer. And some of the pain points are, when you're doing like wind turbines, lightweighting cars, there's a lot around like filtering, specialized fabrics. You need a super polymer. And that this one is radio transparent, it's non-flammable, it has a lot of properties. And the other reason I invested in this is it's people are looking for replacements for materials, what I would just simply call the Teflon family, that are made with PFAS or contain PFAS. There's a lot of feeling that there's going to be a global ban on these materials. So they're getting a lot of great traction in a commodity area because where's the pain point? PFAS, right? A chemical that's being outlawed. So.
Any other questions from the audience?
Good morning. Thank you for coming and for taking your own advice about being generous. It was very helpful to see the presentation. My name is Tamim, and I'm a software engineer. I've been in Boston for 7 years, worked at a number of companies. In the software industry today, there's two things I see a lot of. One is remote work. And so I'm just curious about your perspective on remote work in the context of a startup, which has a lot of challenges. And second of all, how do you survive the long sales pipeline? You mentioned a lot of enterprise software. That can be very demanding and very taxing on a team, depending on getting the attention of these behemoths to potentially find a way to make the money. You often get kicked around from one person to the next, kind of they punt the question. It could even be hard to find the right people in an organization, although you can see the fit. How do you find folks are able to survive that? And, just any advice you might have on that.
Yeah, just such great questions. And enterprise is so hard, no matter what field you're in, whether it's nuclear detectors or software. I shared that picture of that video. Actually, it wasn't that video. Maybe it's something else I watched. No, it was his video. One thing you can do is sell, believe it or not, a piece of what you have. There's a lot of really interesting stories about that in software where you think you need it actually complete, but sometimes people just want an ingredient. So think about that. And this way you can just get going. When I worked in semiconductor equipment, this is actually how the company got going. They were like MIT Fusion Lab people, and they built all this stuff, and we had all this equipment. But what the customers actually wanted was this 5 kilowatt power supply. It was actually just a piece of what we could do. But it was small and compact because they were early adopters at the time of something called IGBTs, a type of gate rectifier. And we started selling them like hotcakes to Applied Materials, this like Fortune 100 company, just a massive company. Anyway, so I tend to tell stories. What we see with our software firms, the ones that are in our portfolio, is they're tackling, a couple of them done really well tackling like purchasing, difficult purchasing, when you need like a PhD to be doing the purchasing. So you're spending a lot of money on that worker, like highly technical purchasing. So for instance, like I used to work with a dopant called europium iodide. It's not that easy to purchase. You gotta get the specs right. And the thinking has changed among investors in terms of what is good growth for a SaaS industry. So a SaaS company, so you're selling software, tools, right? And they're paying you monthly, say. So this is like one of the most brilliant business models ever, right? It's awesome. So try to get there. But there was always this rule of 40 about how fast you're growing versus like your customer acquisition costs and stuff like that. And now people are saying, it's okay if you're growing in certain industries. It's okay if you're growing 10% a year. You don't have to be growing like 20 or 30% a year. I think in a lot of those arenas, those days are gone. And particularly in enterprise sales, The other thing is people have adjusted their expectations about when you will exit. So generally we expect it takes 10 years. It just takes a while to get going. I'll also say land and expand is also really difficult, more difficult than you think. So for that, you really need to build a beautiful UI that the very high decision makers can look at it and say, oh, I'm getting something useful out of this too. So give them a snapshot of their landscape of something that, it may be just important to them every Tuesday morning when they're meeting with their CFO, or maybe something useful to them every Thursday morning when they're meeting the guy who leads all the plants or leads all the sales, say. So have different, in your product, have a bird's eye view, and then your mid-tier kind of operational view, right, in the dashboard, and then the operator level, the engineer view. There's also the Atlassian model, right? So there's so many ways to do enterprise, right? So they just sort of get people working on it from the ground, and then it bubbles up, and then that's really cool when that happens, and then it bubbles up into an enterprise sale in the end. But it's years of it bubbling up and people saying, I really like using Trello, right? It's tricky. Did I answer your question? Do you have a follow-up?
Just one question about what's your opinion on... You did, thank you. That was also very detailed. And then the other question I had was, what are your perspectives within your firm on remote work? I mean, software folks expect it. Do you guys veer away? Is that a red flag? Or are you guys okay with hiring, folks that are not in office?
I got one that has a remote co-founder. He's in California. It still fit our mission because we want to support certain levels of expertise. So really exciting areas in the state's mission are that they want to double down on life sciences, and they want to expand and double down on clean energy. But They're also interested in supporting quantum technology, quantum computing, and AI. So this was an AI play, and I said, look, like we have so much going on here. OpenAI like licensed technology from MIT, like got invented, but it winds up in California. Like, can we do a better job? The short answer is it depends. I think in general, remote work is great because you have a happier employee a lot of the time, and traffic can be brutal. They might be in New Hampshire. They don't want to drive down every day. Most firms, frankly, a lot of firms really push it. Like they'd say, do not hire here. It's too stinking expensive. Build a team in South Carolina, right? So every firm's a little different. And that's why you got to talk to like 100, 200 investors. You got to find the timing for them. And you got to find that, obviously it's hard. I suppose you can use AI for it now. Is like everyone's got this mission. And like those clean tech ones they're not gonna move off that mission. Their LPs invested in it. And some of them, even with clean tech, they'll only do CO2 reduction. So they wouldn't even do a recyclable plastic. Right. So that's why in my mind, I'm like, okay, there's CO2 and then there's pollution abatement. Some people argue the pollution problem's bigger. Actually, as an existential threat, that's a different story. That was a scientific article in Science magazine. But anyway. We're wrapping up here. I'm happy to end a few minutes early if people, I'll hang out for a little bit if people have any like private questions, but I'd love how you've all shared with me today. Anything else you guys want to share what you're working on? We can go quickly around the room. I'm really curious.
Yeah, I think the market for fintech is an incredible market,
All right.
particularly here in Massachusetts.
Yes, it is strong here.
It's got a lot of good things, high growth, high demand.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's crying for disruption right now.
Yep.
They write a tremendous amount of custom code.
Yep.
And I think that if you can figure out how to insert generated code and do that right, if you can use object-oriented systems to allow collaboration, better level of collaboration that gets documented in the code, I think you can disrupt this market.
Absolutely, 100%. They all have chief technical officers, chief information officers. Do you know C10 Labs?
I don't.
Over in Kendall Square? Yeah,
Okay.
right. Yeah, check those guys out. They work with AI startups. It's an incubator, and they always have one or two or three really great fintech companies hanging around. Just amazing
Thank you.
stuff going on. That industry is adopting AI very quickly. They need it so badly. And they're so comfortable with big models and all that stuff, right? They're like Black Scholes, all that stuff. What are you working on?
Yeah, so I'm actually working in the $1 trillion print industry. This is a great example. Boston Startup Week likely had to go to several different vendors to print banners, different cards,
Yep.
so on and so forth. So the idea that my co-founder and I have is there's a huge network of print shops and printers themselves that are great at what they're doing, and all the bigger companies have centralized operations. So our idea is to build a platform so that we're connecting really all your needs, but we're sourcing it back to the print shops and then getting it delivered locally. So instead of having everything shipped from the central location, like take, for example, if you were traveling to San Francisco for a conference, why take all the material from here and fly it across, have it delivered there?
Yes.
And have it sourced by the local community. And so really
It is a very fragmented market, and definitely for conferences. Like I remember making posters and stuff and trying to have it shipped directly. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like a cooperative in a way. Yeah.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
ocean spray of
Yep, like a
print
shared
shops.
model approach, and then it really helps a lot of smaller businesses as well who are, trying to find, and it could be anything. It could be apparel, it could be packaging, like restaurants,
Right.
putting like menus or takeout orders. Like print is everywhere.
Yep.
As much as we think it's dead.
No, we love print.
My research has been showing it's approaching $1 trillion
Wow.
globally. So,
Yeah. Anytime you're helping people make money.
Yep. Yep.
You're helping those companies sell. You're helping them get a little better profit margin, and it helps customers find what they need.
Yeah,
I like
and
that.
your point on helping companies make money resonated because I was an executive at multiple software companies, and that resonates quite a bit. Stay close to the revenue, because at the end of the day, the print shops need to focus on what they do best, and what they do best is not trying to secure more sales or trying to go market. What they do best is printing the items that they need to print. Right, so if we can feed them the funnel
Yeah,
of orders.
that's what software's so great at.
That's how they make money.
And you have a lot of confidence in that area. We're actually at the hour. Does anyone
Yeah,
else want to share what they're working on?
Stacy, thank you so
Never
much for
said
your
that.
time and your insights. I do want to formally close this session out. We have a lot more in store, both today and the rest of the week. Specifically, I hope everyone will stick around for the startup crawl that will be kicking off at 6 p.m. We'll be gathering on the first floor a little bit before 6. In this room specifically, the next session is Brand Beginnings, Crafting an Unforgettable Product. So please stick around if that interests you. If you're joining us virtually and you're interested in the next session, please just hang tight and we'll be streaming in a few minutes. So thank you so much, Stacy, and that's it. See you in a few minutes.
Thank you, everybody.